markets. A return to steadier trends and higher volatility led to increased volumes, largely due to momentum trading by investors. Momentum trading is when the investors make things happen. They just do it more and more, over and over again. Whoosh, like that. The time is money, and the velocity of money is what makes it more and more valuable. It's also very inflationary. In addition, the widening of interest rate differentials, that is the difference between everybody's interest rate. Japan had 0%, everybody else had much higher than 0%. It encouraged a thing called the carry trade. In fact, when this was written, nobody talked about the carry trade. It's even put within quotation marks because they say some people call it the carry trade. Today, almost everybody knows about it, thank heavens. I've been talking about it for years, and when I first started talking about it, hardly anyone knew what it was. That's where investors finance positions in high-yielding currencies by borrowing in low-yielding currencies. Borrowing in low-yield currencies means that they're leveraging everything, and that is where bubbles come from. If you can borrow something to infinity, you'll borrow to infinity if you're going to turn it over and make money off the differential between it and something else that's also being played with in the same way. It's very dynamic, namely, it grows. Also, because of computers, they reduced trading costs and other barriers to entry while enhancing pricing transparency. This led to an increase in the number of leveraged accounts. Commodity trading advisors grew in number. They grew like locusts. They were all over the place. And currency overlay managers focusing on foreign exchanges as an asset class also grew in number. And they did high volume, programmed, algorithmic trading strategies. That's where all the computer geniuses went to. And it grew and grew. Being an over-the-counter instrument, interest rate swaps can come in a huge number of varieties and be structured to meet specific needs of the counterparties. By far, the most common are fixed for floating, or floating for floating. Usually they chose the floating for floating because that is where they got to make the most money. That's where they had the most dynamism, and that's where everything grew like gangbusters. Off-balance sheet derivatives are concentrated on the largest banks. According to this report, which is in 2004, there were 9 commercial banks accounting for 94% of the total notational amounts of the derivatives market. But today, there's 5, and actually 4. HSBC is on the ropes. It's dying. We'll talk about that later. These markets are impossible. They can't be resolved. They can't be fixed. They have to be eliminated. This is what everybody's hesitating on. They know it's a bubble. They know it is a monster, and we know what monsters do. They destroy everything. They wreck everything. And what do you do with monsters? You have to kill them off. Instead, what they're trying to do is resolve the market, tame it, and to bring it under control, and therefore have everything work out nicely. Except this should have been done in 1984, not in 2009. Not after it grew to be bigger than the world's entire worth. This thing is gigantic. How on earth are they going to reduce it in size without beheading somebody? And this is what derivatives are all about. It's a con game. It's based on an unbalanced dollar, collapsing markets, and people lying to each other, and it should be outlawed. Thank you very much. Let's look at some details here. This lists the top 8 banks involved in the derivatives markets. JP Morgan has an $87+ trillion overhang. The Bank of America, which is struggling to stay alive and had to be taken over, has a $38 trillion bet. Citibank, which is floundering too and has to be rescued frequently, has a $31 trillion, and Goldman Sachs has $30 trillion. The rest are far less, only $3 or $4 trillion. I mean, it's like Nothing. But the top four banks are the ones that are being bailed out continuously by the federal government, along with AIG. This graph shows how the markets took off in 1995. The interest rate swaps shot straight upwards. This coincides with the Bank of Japan going into its ZIRP method of banking, which is a zero interest rate program. This is a ridiculous situation, and you can see it greatly warped the markets. This graph shows how interest rate derivatives are the far and away majority of the deals. And as we look along the line of these colorful bars, we see that they shoot straight up, which is a classic hockey stick graph. On top of that, the very last bar here, which is the light blue one, is from the fourth quarter of 2008, which is when we had the total collapse of all our banking systems. So why did this derivatives thing shoot up at the same time that the whole thing was collapsing? What a riddle this is. It goes up to $180 trillion, an amazing amount. This chart shows losses. As we can see, the losses went straight downwards to an amazing degree. $850 million was lost in the settlement of these derivatives, and yet at the same time it grew tremendously. I cannot figure out why this is happening. It seems so contrary-wise. Nobody can explain this market. This graph shows the percentage of losses. JP Morgan lost around 20%, and the Bank of America lost about 25%. Citibank lost around 50%. Goldman Sachs evidently had a small profit, but HSBC had a loss of 200%. I would suggest that HSBC is in serious trouble and perhaps might not be a solvent bank. One might even suggest that very few of the big banks, especially the ones carrying over $30 trillion in derivatives bets, or for goodness sakes, 90 trillion, are really insolvent, and they should be investigated and perhaps even shut down.